Hello, happy Wednesday. Welcome to a live episode of Pop Culture on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm Keri, your host. I'm here with my co-host, Mystery Chris. Hello, Mystery Chris.
Well, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you guys for waiting. Very grateful. Sorry we're starting a little late. I got to see comedians Chrissy Mayer and Lila Hart today in Austin, and they have a show tonight. And if you're in Austin, I've been telling people online, go see it. So maybe you're already there. But I had to get back here for the show. So anyway, thanks for waiting. It was like, the drive took twice as long as usual because I forgot about rush hour traffic being a thing.
How could you forget about rush hour traffic?
Because I usually don't go in it. I avoid it. And yeah, it was bad. I was like, these are the people commuting. I used to commute. Mm.
Do you notice like foreign license plates? By foreign, I mean outside of the state.
Yes, there's a
How
lot of
many? It
California.
just gets more and more. Yep.
Yeah, what do you see?
I've seen it. I'm pretty sure I've seen license plates from every single state in the union, even outside the state. Puerto Rico, technically, a state, but
Oh,
I've
I've
seen
even
Puerto Rican
seen
license plates. I've seen
Hawaii.
Alaska, Hawaii. Yep.
Yeah.
Maine. Just one's so far from Texas. So.
There's so many people moving here.
Yep.
And I have to remind myself when I see a California license plate here in Texas to be gracious and assume the best because I used to have a California plate. I mean, I'm a big old hypocrite, you know what I mean? And I know
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of cultural refugees moving here, and I want them here. If you are a cultural refugee, we want and need you because there's too many of the cultural missionaries coming here trying to change the culture. And so we need the refugees. So I have to remember that because when I see the California plate, my initial, like, immediate instinct is, you know, what are you doing here? Like,
Especially they have a Beto sticker on it.
oh, then you know. Oh, gross. Gross. It's like they just got here. They haven't even been here long enough to change their plates, and they're already putting Texas politicians on the back of their car. And of course, it's that one, you know?
Yep.
They may, but
Three-time loser.
he's a 3-time loser. It's smart of them to leave it up because he'll just probably keep running and running and running. But welcome, chat. Good to see some familiar faces in the chat. Yeah, Kevin Anderson. Hey, Kevin. He's a local. He says they're not all evil from California. That is true. So I do remind myself of that. Welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. If you're new here, this is a live show that Mystery Chris and I do every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central, and we cover different subjects in pop culture. So we hang out, we have fun with the chat, we have a few laughs, and we do a deep dive on different topics. So welcome to the channel. And if you're regular and you like the show and you want to support it, you can become a member here at YouTube or Locals, Patreon, Subscribestar, or you can hit like on the video. That helps us share the video, or what's the other? Oh, leaving comments. Leaving comments helps. So we thank you very much. Returning folks. We have a pretty cool topic tonight. Do you wanna set it up or should I?
Why don't you try?
When I spring it on you sometimes. Mr. Chris, tell us what we're talking about tonight. Well, I know you have for a long time have been wanting to cover Sinead O'Connor, her unforgettable moment on Saturday Night Live when she ripped up a picture of the Pope. And for a long time now, that's been in our rotating list of, at some point you wanted to talk about that. And then she unfortunately passed away recently and was in the news. And it was like, you were like, I still want to talk about that at some point. And so then we started thinking about other unscripted moments from television that sort of started a cultural conversation or shaped the culture in some way, or at the very least was something that caught people's attention when television goes off script. And I don't mean reality TV. because I hope we all know that that's pretty scripted. But things that happened that were not planned and that happened live on television. And we've cobbled together a list of some of the things that stuck out to us. And I'm sure you guys in the chat have other moments. So if we missed something that you think was really important culturally, or at least something that got people started talking about something, let us know. But we're going to walk through some of these moments, especially for the young people who may not know about some of these moments. Right?
We do it for the young people.
We do. We do it for the young people. Also, we did not include on this list. I'll tell you, there's been some moments where we as a country have all been glued to the television. Not just as a country, there've been some moments that were so huge that the whole world was glued to the television, and here in America, and we're not gonna cover, like, I mean, 9/11, everybody
11 Challenger.
the
I mean,
Challenger,
maybe even the OJ chase.
probably the OJ chase, the Las Vegas shooting, but we're not including those because those were news footage that started, like, live footage that we were all watching about something that was happening and unfolding, but it wasn't really kind of what we're talking about, where there was already a broadcast happening and it became suddenly, something surprising was thrown into the mix of that live broadcast. So that's what we're talking about tonight. Yeah, so let's get the white Bronco is indelibly stamped in our
I
minds.
know. By the
I
way,
was
there's
in
a very good ESPN documentary, a 30 for 30 one on OJ. It talked about the sporting events that took place that day with the one of the hockey team up in New York, and it was also the Knicks versus the Rockets on the same day that the chase happened. And if anyone gets a chance to check that out, highly recommend it. It was a very good documentary. It was like June, I forget what day it was, June whatever, 1994, but it's very good
Isn't
documentary.
that an ESPN show?
Yeah, ESPN 30 for 30
30 for
series.
30. Cool. I will check that out. Okay. So, well, actually, I didn't think about this one. Was the Challenger a live event that was already
Yeah.
unfolding, that was
Well,
being
yeah, well, that was
covered?
being shown live on there. Yeah.
So that probably should have been on our list. Maybe we should touch on that a little bit. Laura has a good point, because we were like, well, some of the news coverage events we weren't including because it wasn't, like 9/11. We all ended up glued to the television, but we weren't there watching that when it first, it wasn't like something that was interrupted with a really shocking, unscripted moment or tragedy. But yeah, the Challenger, a lot of people were watching that while it happened. So,
Yeah, I've heard stories of people who were in school and they were watching that with the class, and suddenly it
yes,
explodes and everyone's in shock.
I have that memory, but my memory's not good enough to recall if we were watching it while it happened or if they put it on when the news started. I'm not sure. I don't know. That's been a long time since I was that young. But it was like that was exactly one of those kind of things that just sort of changed what people were talking about and changed the conversation. And yeah, so let's start with the one that you've been wanting to talk about for a while. Let's start with Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, Sinead O'Connor. So I've been interested in Sinead O'Connor since the incident happened on Saturday Night Live, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I didn't know at that time, and I think a lot of people didn't know quite the amount of abuse she went through. There was a documentary that came out, I think last year. I want to say it was Showtime, but some channel it came out, and it kind of details her life and does talk a bit about how much abuse she suffered under her mother and what she experienced in her religious schooling. And learning that kind of made what happened on SNL make more sense as to what she was talking about and why. Uh, how she was trying to call out abuse within the Catholic Church out. Unfortunately, the way she did it didn't really make people look at that abuse. Eventually, that abuse would come out, but not because of what she did. And so she kind of killed her career by doing so. which is sad. But because I do like some of her music, and I do
Me
think she
too.
was pretty talented. But she clearly had issues, and like I said, you learn her backstory; it all makes sense. So
Yeah, she seemed to struggle with issues her whole life, and um, but there were many things to admire about her. I recently read, with her passing, an open letter that she had written to Miley Cyrus, which is a great letter. She released it at the time, um, where she was being called by reporters and asked to comment on Miley Cyrus, who had just put out this, really sexualized new image of herself and naked on the wrecking ball, and was saying in interviews that she was in one of her heroes was Sinead O'Connor. She was inspired by Sinead O'Connor, and so Sinead was being asked to comment on this, and instead she wrote an open letter and posted it. It's a great letter. You should find it and read it. Um, but she basically told her, you need to have some respect for yourself, and whoever is advising you that taking off your clothes is the way to do it is not your friend, and you need to fire those people, and the music industry will use you and abuse you, and they'll still be counting the money basically when you're in rehab somewhere. She was like, trust me, um, you need to get some self-respect. And she was being very gracious and was telling Miley Cyrus in that letter, you are talented enough. You don't have to, she called it prostituting yourself in a way. You don't have to do that on television or music videos or online to sell your music, because you make great music. And it was there, she had so many moments like that where just this piercing truth came through despite whatever other mental issues she was dealing with. um yeah, and I was a big fan of her music.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's why she shaved off her hair, because Sinead, when she first entered the music business, they wanted to make her sexy and make her this, huge pop star, and she hated that. She hated them trying to make her into something that she wasn't, and she didn't want to be. And so she was like, "Eff it, I'm just going to shave off my hair." And you could see that all throughout, her music and the way she interacted with people, how she kind of had this disdain for the fakeness of, the pop and music industry in general, and just how much she kind of hated the authority. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
she actually said that in her letter to Miley. She said, I've been told that you're saying in interviews that your look is based on me or my look. And she said, uh I really thought long and hard about this look of mine, and I chose it because the music industry was pressuring me to do what they've now got you doing, and this was my way of rebelling and saying no. I'm not going to be some sex icon.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, well, let's bring up the video.
Yes. So
So
this is from 1992, and this was on Saturday Night Live, and this was the second song she sang, and this is the very end of that song.
now this was a shock to the SNL crew, um producers, audience. They didn't know she was going to do this on live television.
We have confidence in the victory of good over evil. Fight the real enemy.
Nobody knew what to do.
Yeah, they're all shocked. Even the people in the control room, normally they hit the applause sign, but they didn't hit it. That's another reason why there wasn't anybody applauding. But yeah, everybody was just absolutely surprised, because she initially had a picture of a young boy from, I think, Brazil, who had gotten shot by the police, and she told him like that was what she was going to hold up. And at the very last moment, she brings out the picture of the Pope and tears that up. And so this pissed off a lot of people. I know, I think it was the following week, Joe Pesci, who's devout Catholic, hosted the show, and he's basically like, F this, F her, screw her. He was like really pissed during his monologue. And Saturday Night Live poked fun at Sinead by doing, I wish we could play like full clips of the skits, but they did a skit with Phil Hartman as Frank Sinatra. And he's doing this McLaughlin Report type of show where has a bunch of people sitting in chairs around him, and Jan Hooks is playing Sinead, and he keeps calling her the wrong name. He's like, Sinbad O'Connor, tell us what you think.
Phil Hartman.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
We might even get in trouble for playing that little clip of SNL. Like, they're pretty crazy on YouTube about not letting you play stuff. So we'll see what happens. This video might come down. We're just warning you. So this is interesting because I saw somebody in chat. It scrolled by. Janice says, I was so insulted by that I never gave her music a chance. Yeah, so I think her message was lost on a lot of people. And you sent me an article because she ended up trying to explain what she was protesting. And she came out and was saying, she was a Christian at the time she did this. Later in life, she ended up converting to Islam. But at the time she ripped up this photo, she was still a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And she was trying to, according to her, start a conversation about child abuse in the church that was being covered up by the church. And here, let's should I bring up the article?
Yeah, bring up, are you bringing up the LA Times one? That's the one with the letter in it?
Yes.
Okay. This is what she wrote about 3 weeks after it. And if you skip down to the part where the letter actually begins and just read that. It's just a recap at the beginning. If you keep going down.
So she says, Dear whoever,
there we go.
My name is Sinead O'Connor. I am an Irish woman, and I am an abused child. The only reason I ever opened my mouth to sing was so that I tell my story and have it heard. The cause of my abuse is the history of my people, whose identity and culture were taken away from them by the British with full permission from the Holy Roman Empire, which they gave for money and in the name of Jesus Christ. The only hope for me as an abused child was to look back into my childhood and face some very difficult memories and some desperately painful feelings and a lot of very tricky conversations. I had to have it acknowledged that that was done to me so that I could forgive and be free. So it has occurred to me that the only hope of recovery for my people is to look back into our history, face some very difficult truths and some very frightening feelings. It must be acknowledged what was done to us so we can forgive and be free. If the truth remains hidden, then the brutality under which I grew up will continue for thousands of Irish children, and I must, by any means necessary, without the use of violence, prevent that happening because I am a Christian. Child abuse is the highest manifestation of evil. It is the root and effect of every addiction. Its presence in a society shows that there is not contact with God, and God is truth to me. The Catholic Church have controlled us by controlling education. Through their teachings on sexuality, marriage, birth control, and abortion, and most spectacularly through the lies they taught us with their history books. The story of my people is the story of the African people, the Jewish people, the American Indian people, the South American people. My story is the story of countless millions of children whose families and nations were torn apart for money in the name of Jesus Christ. God is truth, Sinead O'Connor. And that was published in the LA Times.
How do you think, she could have actually gotten her message across better? So I'm going to say, again, I'm sympathetic with her, wanting to get that message out. It's something that needed to get out, but obviously it didn't have the effect that she intended, because even with this letter, nobody, or I should say nobody, few people went back and read it, or they didn't read it with a clear mind. They're still so incensed that she would destroy the picture of the Pope. And so do you think, she could have found some other way to better communicate that would have, I don't know, maybe convinced people to actually look into the abuse within that church?
Well, it's interesting because at the time, I don't know how much of an impact it had. I don't know if her message came across clearly. I don't think it did. Would you agree?
No, yeah, it definitely didn't.
It didn't come across clearly. And if you read articles about it today, they talk about that, how it caused a worldwide reaction. But I think most people who casually heard about this or even saw it, instead of talking about the specific history in Ireland, and what she's talking about between the British and the Irish, instead of talking about that, and instead of talking about the child abuse scandals, instead, I think people who just casually picked up that her message was anti-Christian or anti-Catholic,
Right.
specifically. And so I think, like someone in the chat said, people came away from it kind of, oh, she's anti-God. And and then some people, like in the chat, said, and then I didn't listen to her music. So, well, let me say one more thing before I say what she could have done differently. I don't know if a personality like her could do it differently.
Yeah, I know.
Because
this is the most shocking way she could do it.
Yeah, I kind of admire that, even though at the time it didn't do what she wanted it to do. She took that chance. I kind of admire the way she's just like balls to the wall, like, I'm gonna say what I think the truth is. Even in that open letter to Miley, imagine that. I'm sure there were people who, and when she posted it, by the way, then when she shared that open letter about Miley, what was it, like 2012 or something? Then Miley like mocked her and basically said she was crazy and stuff. That's how she took the letter, even though it was delivered with, there was a lot of love in the letter too. But I'm sure there were a lot of people at the time who also felt like that's just too far. You don't call out someone and publish an open letter to them about how they need to learn self-respect. I'm sure that some people think that backfired also. But if you look all this time later now about her ripping up the picture of the Pope, maybe I'm wrong. But the sense I get is that maybe this is just because I ended up looking into it years and years later. And you did, clearly, because you kept wanting to talk about this. But the sense I have now, and if you read articles now, a lot of the headlines now say things like, and even before she passed, a lot of the headlines were starting to say stuff like, we owe Sinead O'Connor an apology, like the public at large. That people should have paid attention to what she was trying to say, that the message got lost. And so the lasting effect of that, at the time, I think maybe most people didn't get what she was trying to say, but I get the sense people today do know why she did that, right?
I think some. I mean, I don't know how much animosity there still is from some people towards her, especially now she's passed. But yeah, I think a lot of people, like you were saying, I've seen a lot of articles and other people saying they owe her apology. And certainly now that she's gone, I think a lot of people are taking a look at her legacy and what she's said in song and what she did on SNL, and it's kind of looking at it differently now.
I think so too. I actually, here, let me stop sharing this. There's a lot of these articles that from more mainstream sources as well that today say, the public got it wrong. Here's just one of them. This is Irish Central. Sinead O'Connor wasn't wrong about the church and deserved an apology. That's the headline. Sinead O'Connor deserved an apology for the criticism she endured after ripping up a picture of Pope John Paul II on Saturday Night Live in 1992. And then they kind of recap what happened, and they go on to say O'Connor's declaration back in 1992 that the Catholic Church was rotten to its core and pedophile priests and their enablers were the real enemy was true. And, we now know that the pedophile scandals were rampant during the era of Pope John Paul II, who chose to turn a blind eye. O'Connor was calling out the right person. I'm just saying that this, I think, is at least the tone of a lot of stuff that you read today. I think people in the end are kind of like, even if they don't agree with it or her methods, at least I think more people now know what the message was that she was trying to share. Right?
Yeah. Would you mind pulling up that video? And this, I want to just give a sense of how much anger there was right after she did what she did. So this video's her at a Bob Dylan, I believe, a tribute concert at Madison Square Garden 1 week after she ripped up the picture on SNL, and she gets booed throughout the entire performance.
Wow. Okay, let's.
Sinead O'Connor.
Wow.
Yeah, look at that.
Thank you.
Think about it this time too. So not only does she endure this, you know, people hating her after that, and she just continues to be herself.
Mhm.
And again, I know in the chat, I'm not looking at it right now, but I'm sure there are people who are like, yeah, herself is crazy. Well, I'm not denying she had mental issues that she grappled with, absolutely. But there is a part of her that is just so brave, whether you agree with her message or not. Think about what it takes to say something that's unpopular, or to say something and people misinterpret what you're saying and they don't like it, or whatever, to endure this type of public booing and still just continue saying what you think is true. Like, I admire that quality in someone.
Yeah. And like I said, it ruined her career because she kept making music for a while after that, but nobody cared.
Yeah. Somebody says, yeah, the Tates are just being themselves too. Yeah, but the Tates are not guided by truth. They're pathological liars. And quite the opposite of Sinead. The reason I covered those guys on Monday is because I do see them being held up to some degree, even now, as some kind of role model or good example for men, which I don't agree with. So, anyway. Should I play the rest of this, or is that what you wanted to show?
That was basically it. Like I said, the entire performance keeps getting booed at the very end. I think it's Chris Christopherson. I think comes over and like hugs her, even though she's getting booed still. So it's like the entire song. I was like, damn, people were
Yeah.
really angry.
Wow.
It's the last time people are angry over like something like this regarding religion.
Yeah. Vase of Flowers says Sinead was pretty. Yeah, she was beautiful. That's
She
the other
looked like
thing.
Winona Ryder with hair. If you ever seen her with hair, I'm like, well, that's Winona
Yeah.
Ryder.
That's also so different to of course, you have people like Miley saying, I'm going to shave part of my head to emulate Sinead today. But back then, this was very uncommon. And it was like, to kind of do your own thing and flout the standards of beauty or what have you. And as she said in that letter to Miley Cyrus, she was doing that on purpose because she was so appalled by them trying to turn her into a sex symbol. Can you imagine her record label when she shaved her head? They were like,
Miley Cyrus always struck me as someone who thought she's hotter than she actually is.
I don't have a lot of positive things to say about her, so I won't even go there.
Just talk about her dad. Achy breaky heart.
Achy breaky heart, right? Oh my gosh! Did you grew up in the church, right?
Yeah.
Did your church ever take popular songs? And because when I was a kid, we went to a Southern Baptist church, and they would take popular songs and turn them into Jesus songs. So we had to sing "Jesus Save My Heart, My Achy Breaky Heart."
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Did they not want to pay money to get these official Christian songs? Yes, I don't know. No.
And we did it with sign language.
Wow. I went to a black church. It was all gospel. So no.
Okay. Yeah. I can't see you doing that. Jesus save my heart. Achy breaky heart. It wasn't even real sign language. Okay. Um, let's see.
What are we doing next?
Did you want me to touch on this other article, or it's not
Oh,
necessary?
you can. And the other article is basically a excerpt from her memoirs, and it basically talks about that night that she ripped up the picture. It's pretty interesting. I don't know if you wanted to read any of it or not, but
Yeah, I'm interested in
sure.
it. So,
And I would go down to the part where the memoir starts because, like the other article, it just kind of gives a recap a little bit at the beginning of what happened, but the way she described it's kind of interesting. So,
Rolling Stone, the headline is excerpt. Sinead O'Connor recalls SNL Pope Furor in new memoir. Singer details backstory to one of the most shocking moments in music history in new book Rememberings. So where should I go down to where it starts?
yeah. Well, go away. Okay. Yeah, the day my mother died, right there.
The day my mother died, myself and my siblings went inside her house for the first time in several years, our own secrets to seek, not hers. There were still broken plastic swans in the bathroom, resolute, long-necked, frozen, as if nothing had happened. I took down from her bedroom wall the only photo she ever had up there, which was of Pope John Paul II. It was taken when he visited Ireland in 1979. Young people of Ireland, he had said, after making a show of kissing the ground at the Dublin airport like the flight had been overly frightening. I love you, he said. What a load of claptrap. Nobody loved us, not even God. Sure, even our mothers and fathers couldn't stand us. In 1978, Bob Geldof ripped up a photo of Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta on Top of the Pops because their shit record Summer Nights had been number 1 for 7 weeks.
I never heard of that.
And finally, Geldof's Boomtown Rats single Rat Trap had taken over. Quote, I know if I do this, there'll be war, but I don't care. I know my scripture, nothing can touch me. End quote. My intention had always been to destroy my mother's photo of the Pope. It represented lies and liars and abuse. The type of people who kept these things were devils like my mother. I never knew when or where or how I would destroy it, but destroy it I would when the right moment came. And with that in mind, I carefully brought it everywhere I lived from that day forward, because nobody ever gave a shit about the children of Ireland. I've awoken after going to bed at 6 a.m. It's 1 p.m., only a few hours until camera rehearsal for SNL. I'm to perform 2 songs, the second of which is Bob Marley's War, a cappella. The lyric is actually a speech given to the United Nations by the Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie in New York in 1963 about racism being the cause of all wars. But I'm going to change a few lines to be a declaration of war against child abuse, because I'm pissed at Terry for what he told me last night. I'm pissed he's been using kids to run drugs, and I'm pissed he's going to be dead by Monday. It also happens I've been pissed off for a few weeks because I've been reading The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, a contrarian blasphemous history of the early church, but also finding brief articles buried in the back pages of Irish newspapers about children who have been ravaged by priests, but whose stories are not believed by the police or bishops their parents report it to. So I've been thinking even more of destroying my mother's photo of JP2, and I decide that tonight is the night. I bring the photo to the NBC studio and I hide it in the dressing room. At the rehearsal, when I finish singing Bob Marley's War, I hold up a photo of a Brazilian street kid who was killed by cops. I ask the cameraman to zoom in on the photo during the actual show. I don't tell him what I have in mind for later on. Everyone's happy. A dead child far away is no one's problem. I know if I do this, there'll be war, but I don't care. I know my scripture. Nothing can touch me. I reject the world. Nobody can do a thing to me that hasn't been done already. I can sing in the streets like I used to. It's not like anyone will tear my throat out. Showtime. I'm wearing a white lace dress that once belonged to Sade. That's how you say it, right?
I always pronounce it Sade, but I don't know.
Sade, you're right. I always get that wrong. Once belonged to Sade. I bought it at a rock and roll auction in London when I was 19. Paid £800 for it. It's beautiful. There's a coin-sized lead weight in each side of the slit at the back to keep it straight and make it hang ladylike. Very clever. A dress for women to behave badly in. One day, maybe I will have a daughter who gets married in it. So the show goes on. First song, Success Has Made a Failure of Our Home is a Dream. By the way, that song wrecked me when I was young. Like, that song is a
Really.
song. It's so good. Anyway, first song, Success Has Made a Failure of Our Home is a Dream. Plenty of people milling about backstage afterwards, producers, managers, makeup artists, and fellow guests. I'm the flavor of the month. Everyone wants to talk to me, tell me how I'm a good girl, but I know I'm an imposter. Second song is set up beautifully with one candle beside me and my Rasta prayer cloth tied to the microphone. I sing War a cappella. No one suspects a thing. But at the end, I don't hold up the child's picture. I hold up JP2's photo and then I rip it into pieces. I yell, "Fight the real enemy." I'm talking to those who are going to kill Terry. And I blow out the candle. Total stunned silence in the audience. And when I walk backstage, literally not a human being is in sight. All doors have closed. Everyone has vanished, including my own manager, who locks himself in his room for 3 days and unplugs his phone. Quote, I understand I've torn up the dreams of those around me, but those aren't my dreams. End quote. Everyone wants a pop star, see? But I'm a protest singer. I just had stuff to get off my chest. I had no desire for fame. In fact, that's why I chose the first song. Success was making a failure of my life. Because everyone was already calling me crazy for not acting like a pop star, for not worshiping fame. And I understand I've torn up the dreams of those around me, but those aren't my dreams. No one ever asked me what my dreams were. They just got mad at me for not being who they wanted me to be. My own dream is only to keep the contract I made with God before I ever made one with the music business. And that's a better fight than murder. I got to get to the other side of life.
You could stop there.
This is so good, though.
I know it is.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I could just make the whole episode reading Sinead O'Connor's letter. I mean, she's a great writer too. Very emotional. But yeah.
It's interesting. I saw a Morrissey came out with. I don't know if it was a letter or whatever, but I was reading on one of the British papers that he was chastising people who were celebrating Sinead now that she's gone, but were criticizing her or hating on her when she was alive, and talking about how a lot of celebrities people only care about once they're dead. And he brings up Amy Winehouse and Whitney Houston and other people, and how everything changes, where people were bad mouthing you before you die, and suddenly you die and you become a saint. And it's just, I thought it was pretty interesting. And I love Morrissey. He's great.
He is great. And I did, I have seen that happening with the press to a degree. Although I do think I do think the tide was turning, as I said, culturally before she passed away, where people were starting to go and look up and, try and figure out, some people anyway, her reasons. People like you and me who sort of remembered it and were like, why did that happen? Yeah. And then learning her real, what message she was trying, or what conversation she was trying to start,
It kind of reminds me of, if you remember when Britney Spears had her mental breakdown, like,
yes,
how many years ago it was, 15, 16 years ago. Craig Ferguson did, he was doing a monologue, and he started off making fun of her, but then he stopped and was like, you know what, I just don't want to do this. To be like, we're so used to just making fun of these celebrities without trying to understand what's going on in their lives, what caused that. And it was a really touching monologue he had, talking about how people need more empathy, and it came off as very genuine, and he didn't come off as talking down to people, or didn't come off as fake or anything. It was just really good. But I thought it was something that we don't see a lot, because oftentimes when celebrities engage in crazy behaviors and stuff, people aren't taking that empathetic approach and trying to understand, like, well, maybe this person's got some deep issues that we work on, instead of just making fun of them and saying that they're crazy, without trying to understand what led to them taking actions that they did.
Right. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of, I mean, for someone like Britney Spears, when someone starts to have a breakdown and they're a public figure and they're, it just, even someone who I don't really, again, Britney Spears is kind of like, what's her name to me? Miley Cyrus. I don't have a lot of, sorry, chat. I was never into her music. It was after my time, and I never got into it. I'm not a fan. But even for someone I'm not a fan of, and I don't think has anything, you know, interesting to say. Sorry, that sounds very cruel. But when she was going through that, it was like my heartstrings were pulled. Like, she's clearly having mental breakdown. And what's weird is when you see people who are a fan of that person or were kind of become sucked into the mob of enjoying watching them struggle and fall. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kanye West, someone else who struggles with mental health problems, has talked about openly about his mental health issues. And let's do him next. We have a couple things pulled up with him because he's someone else who maybe a controversial opinion, but I actually I have similar opinion or feelings towards him that I do Sinead, where it's like this guy I think has and has admitted he has issues and has said and done some really said some really despicable things recently. But in between there, in his more lucid moments, I think he is a person who I think he is genuinely searching for truth. And I pray that there are good shepherds who are brought back into his life, because I don't know how many good shepherds are around that guy right now.
But do you wonder if any of the choices he's made has been more to be kind of anti-authoritarian in the same way Sinead was choosing to be anti-authoritarian by shaving off the hair? You look at Kanye, he becomes outspoken Christian, and he also becomes part of, MAGA. And those are kind of two things that aren't very, not popular if you're looking at Hollywood and the music industry and stuff. And so it almost seems like, and I'm not, listen, he might be true believers of both of the things, but I just wonder sometimes if part of his desire to kind of give the middle finger off to, the authority figures and people who've been trying to control him has led him to choose some of these things because he knows it kind of pisses them off.
I mean,
I know it's a bit cynical, sorry. But
no, that's cynical. But I mean, I think he has narcissistic tendencies, which even he's agreed to himself and said yes. I know he has, if narcissism is a scale that all humans are on that scale somewhere, he's on the higher end. I don't think he's a full-blown personality disordered narcissist, though. I think he has other issues, which he's talked about. I definitely think he says he's bipolar. I do think he's bipolar. He seems to exhibit flight of thought a lot, where when he's in a manic stage and his thoughts are moving many steps ahead of his mouth, and sometimes you can't follow the connections he's making, and sometimes the connections aren't there and it doesn't make sense. So but anyway, the point is, yes, I do think there's some narcissism there that even he agrees with, that he has that. But I don't believe, this is just me, I don't believe his conversion to Christianity was some stunt. I can't listen to that record and hear, I don't hear artifice. I don't hear con artistry about the words he's putting down on that record. Jesus is Lord. That's an amazing record. And to me, it seemed like he had reached a point. This is my take on him. Yes, people are going to disagree. It's okay. Sometimes I do just stop worrying about people like disagree. It's cool. Everybody knows they can disagree with me, so it's cool. But I do think he's a person who reached a level of fame and success where, how Sinead said in that letter or that piece we just read, how she's done with the world, she's not of the world. He had everything the world had. He's a person who's reached that level of earthly success where he's sampled everything the earth has to offer. All of the world's Christians, of course, talk about being of the world, in the world, but not of the world. And all the things that the world or your flesh wants and that you can have. He's, fame, money, access, power, all of that. He had it and he came up wanting. And I really believe his conversion, it seemed to me like someone who's like St. Augustine, Confessions. where he wrote about trying everything, being like a complete hedonist before, and all of it came up wanting until he found God. And that was the one. And that's what Kanye's record seemed like to me. That's why I think ultimately at the end of the day, he is a real truth teller. I think he's off on some crazy path right now that is a danger for some people who start to wake up to things. We've all seen people who, you know, if they wake up from one ideology or something, right? Or they come to under, like, their old way of looking at the world or belief system, whatever, fails them and they leave it. There's a danger sometimes for people to then question. It's good to question everything at that point. Like, well, what do I really know? But there are some people who just lose their sense of, I don't know, like, being able to just common sense, being able to discern which things are like way far out there, or just a flip side of extremism, right? Like where they just go from one extreme to the other. And
we talked about that on our conspiracy episode, how people have been lied to for so long. So many people don't know what's true, and a lot of times people will be attracted to people or sources that say, hey, you have been lied to, but here's the truth. And that source may be saying something that's not true, whether they're intentionally putting out stuff that's not true or they actually truly believe it. And a lot of these bad ideas or beliefs or conspiracies kind of gain traction for certain people, and it kind of just puts them in a very unhealthy position, I think.
I think so. I think that's some of what's happening with him. But then you mix in their mental health issues and the level of scrutiny and fame and all that stuff, all the craziness that comes with that. And you're not living like a normie at that point, because you do have so much earthly power. People treat you like a god. You're not a god, but people around you. That's why it's really important who he has around him. I don't think he has the right people around him to help shepherd him. Yeah, someone in the chat, Tweet Girl, says Ye's hanging out with Christians, in quotes, who claim to be Christian because it's based, but God calls us to be holy. I don't know. I don't know enough about who's around him, but I suspect that might be the case now. Anyway, he reminds me of, as I said, Sinead in some ways. So let's pull up. He's been a part of several unscripted moments on television.
Are you pulling up? Okay, this one. Yeah, this so I saw this live when this happened. My mouth, my jaw dropped when I watched this. My favorite part is the way Mike Myers. Yep.
Okay, so young people, you may not remember this. This was an unscripted live television moment. This is during Hurricane Katrina. You want to set it up any more than that?
Oh, yeah. There was a fundraiser for the people affected by Hurricane Katrina, and this was a live telecast.
Okay.
He starts saying it towards the end, so I mean we can watch it all the way through, but what the good part is really towards the end.
Where do you think I should go?
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh wait, here we go.
Yeah, you see
just look at
part. Yeah.
Mike Myers' face.
What is the biggest amount I can give, and just to imagine if I was down there, and those are my people down there. So anybody out there that wants to do anything that we can help with the setup, the way America is set up to help the poor, the black people, the less well off as slow as possible. I mean, this is Red Cross is doing everything they can. We already realize a lot of the people that could help are at war right now, fighting another way, and they've given them permission to go down and shoot us.
And so they'll believe
Mike Myers he's like, what do I do?
Just a little nervous, brushing up his face. He's like, oh boy.
Also, because it ends right on, it's almost like this character. We have an episode coming out about British comedy, and there's this sketch comedy character, Vicky Pollard. It's a British character, but she tends to run on and say a lot of things and then just end abruptly. And he kind of has that. He's saying this and this and this, and he's giving people permission to shoot us. Mic drop. Wait, let's do the end of that, and then we'll rub it just a little bit.
To go down and shoot us.
And subtle, but in even many ways more profoundly devastating, is the lasting damage to the survivors' will to rebuild and remain in the area. The destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about Black people.
Please call. In the past few days,
Poor Mike Myers.
Oh, that, and this was such, if you're a young person, you don't remember this. This was huge news. Like, this was unheard of to say something like that on. I mean, and now I feel like maybe young people, if they see this for the first time, they wouldn't even understand how unusual this was, because now I feel like the public square has gotten so, the digital square, now
Mhm.
we have everyone and their moms posting incendiary TikTok videos and
Yeah.
politicians and so, I mean, now we've had Donald Trump himself,
Yeah,
the president
yeah.
himself, who says certain crazy incendiary things.
But think of,
Funny,
yes,
but
think about how many
true.
celebrities have said things worse things about Donald Trump than Kanye said about Bush there.
Right. Yeah. See, now we've gotten to a point where yes, people say worse things, and we've seen Kathy Griffin hold up the severed head of the president. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a different time. But
Yeah.
back then, celebrities, yes, they would still speak their opinions, and they were for the most part leftists, but there seemed to be just like the shreds of some remaining rules of decorum. And if you're on a fundraiser to raise money for hurricane victims, just kind of unspoken rule of civility or decorum is like, you don't use that to launch an attack on a president or the government in general, whoever the president is. I think that was sort of something that, for the most part, they tended to observe back then. Don't you think?
Yeah. And this was, right before social media, because it's 2005. So YouTube came about at the very end of 2005, and then Twitter was 2009. Facebook was going on, but Facebook was still slowly started to become a non-college platform. It started off as being only a college
Right.
network, and once people started getting on, anyone could get on. Then it started to turn into what it's turned into today.
Yes. Yeah, the rules are gone, says Davina. Yeah. People, there's not really any of that sense of, I don't know, there's nothing left of the sense of decorum.
Mad Max.
Bob Maple says, they say this stuff daily on The View. Yeah, now, see, that's where we're at now. It's
Mhm.
like, wouldn't even be shocking now to say something so tasteless, about the president. Now, I'm not saying I completely disagree with him. And at the time, I was deep in the woke world at that time. And I remember being like, yeah, this is crazy, but yeah, like I was all like, because I was in that tribalist,
Uh-huh.
he's attacking George Bush. I had so much just disdain and contempt for President Bush that kind of approaches the level of disdain and contempt I see from a lot of people today towards Trump,
Mhm.
So how was this received where you were?
Everyone liked it. I mean, people were laughing at it, but like, again, there's a lot of people. I was young, and there were a lot of people, of course, hated Bush, and I hated Bush then, and still kind of do. But I never thought Bush was like racist. I mean, he could be, but I don't really care whether someone's racist or not. I care about the policies. Someone could not be racist and be anti-free speech, anti-Second Amendment, anti-Fifth Amendment. So to me, it's like, this is stupid.
Yeah. I did buy into all the stuff that he was a racist, but again, I'm not a good rule of thumb because I was woke back then, and so I wasn't looking at everything objectively. Yes, I think someone in the chat said you had justified disdain, bros and bros for George Bush. I still have disdain for George Bush. absolutely. I think he was terrible, but it doesn't come from that same knee-jerk tribalist place anymore. I've gone back and it takes a long time because you have to look if you want to like look into subjects and say, what do I really think about this? This is what I was used to be programmed to think about it. What do I think about it now? It takes a long time. There's so many to get through things. And so, but that's something I've looked at and I'm like, no, he was terrible. Let me just say thank you to, I'm so sorry, Channel Julio. I just saw this. Thank you for the super chat, dude. Look at you with your beautiful doggy. He says, thank you for the $9.99. He says, Elvis Costello interrupted his set and broke into Radio, an anti-corporate radio song, Thumb in the Eye of NBC. I forgot about that moment, but yes, we're
I never heard of that one.
Oh my goodness, we have to cover this one. I'm making a note of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay. That wasn't the only unscripted moment from Kanye by any means. Should we go on to the next one?
Yes. I think younger people should all know this one, right? Even though it was a while ago.
Yeah, they probably know. They're more likely to know this one because it was like it's pop culture. It's entirely pop culture related.
Involving one of the most biggest singers in the entire world.
Yeah. And again, now this is kind of a sillier one, I think, but definitely people were talking about it. There's not some big meaningful message here with this one that someone's trying to impart. It's just, I think you gave the award to the wrong person and I feel entitled to interrupt you on a live.
But I actually,
you do think there's a bigger conversation?
Well, I do think there was, because I do remember the time there were people who were reading race into it, and either for or against, people saying that, Taylor Swift only won because she's white and that Beyonce lost because she's black. And so, yeah, there was a lot race into the conversation.
You're right. Yeah. Okay. So Taylor Swift won, right?
Yes.
And she's up there giving her acceptance speech.
Thank you so much for giving me a chance to win a VMA award.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
Do you find it funny?
Yes, everything, the shoulder shrug, and it's just.
This was also, I think it gets to that again, the rules of decorum dictate you don't do this. And this had happened at award shows a few times before. Remember when we covered was it the 70s somebody made it was someone at maybe it was the Oscars, you'll have to remind me, and the audience actually booed even though they were saying something leftist.
Yes.
On the stage, because the audience, even though the audience is leftist and the person on stage is saying something leftist, it was not part of the decorum at the time to do that during an award show. Now, of course, they would applaud and cheer. But when was that? Do you remember?
That may have been, I think, wasn't it not Michael Myers? I was about to say Michael Myers. Michael Fatty that does the movies.
Michael Moore?
Yeah. Wasn't it one?
Yes.
I think he got the award for Fahrenheit 9/11, and he made some speech, anti-George Bush speech, and surprisingly, a lot of boos were coming from the crowd, the liberal Hollywood crowd, which is, I mean, maybe there were more conservatives who were willing to say things back then, but I don't know. It was weird.
I think they didn't like where I think it was that at that time people were still like, don't do that here.
Yeah.
Don't bring politics here. Oh, and Kevin reminded me of the one I was thinking of.
Sachuan Little Feather. Yeah, that was.
Yes, that was another example.
Yeah, Marlon Brando sent the fake Indian woman to get his award. Yes,
and that was also not received well because it was like, because she was, it similarly. So this is, you're seeing this shocked moment from the crowd. Now I feel like this has become, again, the fabric of society has unraveled so much that we sort of this unspoken contract that used to govern at least part of society, this unspoken contract of like, certain things for certain times, certain places, and it's just dissolved on the big stage like this, and it's dissolved at the dinner table. I mean, in the woke world that I was in, it started to be every year at Thanksgiving, more and more articles in from the social justice perspective, essays and stuff, published in mainstream publications that were basically like, this Thanksgiving, you should talk to your white family about white supremacy while you're having Thanksgiving dinner with Peepaw, and it's like, no. Like,
This is the whole world has basically become Showtime at the Apollo.
yeah, where you
People just boo. I'm
yes.
boo. Like, yeah.
And people do that now, and we see. I don't know if some people might say, well, we're just seeing more of that because of TikTok and social media and everything. But I actually think it's both things. We're seeing more of it because of social media, but also people are doing more of that. They're engaging in, I see people all the time on social media who brag about how they had to, how they called out their family members, or they cut off contact with their family members because of politics, or they, gosh, just today I saw this guy saying that he and his wife just had a marriage-ending argument because she refuses to keep wearing the mask outside and doesn't care about people dying. That's how deep he is, and so their marriage is ending. And then bragging about it on social media. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where we're at now, where it's like, "And I did this." Screw the rules of society.
It's one of the reasons why I don't get on Twitter as much, is because people are just constantly trying to own other people. And so I told you this, that over the weekend, Blazing Saddles was trending.
Yes.
And it's because of post. Someone said that the woke version of Blazing Saddles was going to air from 8 p.m. that night to 8:07. And the joke is that the woke version would be a re-edit, where you have to edit out most of the movie because it's so offensive by today's standards. But so many like woke people were saying that the people saying that this movie couldn't be made today are stupid. They're racist white wingers who don't understand that the movie was anti-racist. And here's the kicker: there were seriously numerous people, woke people, saying that Blazing Saddles was a woke movie. Like, I took screenshots of it because I could not believe. I was laughing but angry at the same damn time how stupid these people are.
To claim it?
I'm like, Mel Brooks, the director, says this movie can't be made today. I guess that makes him a right winger, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, the N-bombs are all over that movie. It's being used as a punchline. That's why it can't be made today, idiots.
That's weird. Well, you know what's weird about the left? You're making me think about this. Just a slight tangent. Sometimes they want to claim a pop culture icon from history, and they try and claim that one, like, this is one of ours, and they try to put that narrative out there. And I'm shocked they're trying to do it with Blazing Saddles. Like, this is one of ours. It was actually woke. We claim this one. But they do it with other, like, they try to do it with Johnny Cash. Have you noticed this?
I haven't seen that.
I adore Johnny Cash, one of my favorite musicians of all time. And not just his music, but his story, who he was as a person, and his story of redemption. And, he was a person of strong faith, and he failed a lot, which he was open about and talked about. And towards the very end of his life was like, really, like, all on the table, let everyone see him, warts and all. And very strong pronouncements of faith, and in his music, a Christian, and also said, said things that the woke would hate if it were said today. Like, he would say, yeah, you in America, I love America. You have the right to burn the flag, and I have the right to shoot you, or something like that. Like, if you burn my flag, like, he was really, they would hate that. But
how
weirdly, they try and claim him and they try and whitewash who he was. Do you know what I mean? I think they try to do that with Blazing Saddles.
How can we
Now.
get them to claim Birth of a Nation or Triumph of the Will? I seriously want to try to get them to do that. That'd be so hilarious.
You got to trick them into it.
I know. Birth of the Nation is such a woke movie. No, it's not, you racist. Klan was fighting for equality.
Bros and Bows says, an outlaw is neither left nor right. I agree. They do their own thing. They piss off people everywhere. You need to start this campaign to get them to accept Birth of a Nation as a woke movie. Davina says it would be easy.
Let's do it.
Oh, sorry. I put that one on. What does that say? Sorry, Janice. I didn't mean to screenshot what you were saying there about your kid. Sorry. Okay. Well, that's another Kanye moment. We don't have his more recent crazy stuff queued up, but I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. I don't think we need to watch it, mostly because I don't want to have it on my channel. But
why is that, Keri?
He has said some very troubling things, to say the least, recently.
Yeah, he went on Alex Jones' program and talked about a certain ethnic group. And Alex Jones was so uncomfortable. He's like, it was just a joke, right? I was like, cool. You're making Alex Jones uncomfortable. What?
Yes, he was saying, I think people said he was hanging out with that white nationalist guy at the time. What's his name?
Nick Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes. And he was saying a lot of that kind of stuff. And he was wearing a bag over his head, like a
yes, he's wearing a black mask of some sort. It was so bizarre. And he had these jokes, like he had a net and a bottle of Yahoo. He's like, net and Yahoo. Get it? I was like, what is happening to you, Kanye?
No, yeah. So that stuff is shocking, but I also don't want to play it, not just because of the incendiary, anti-Semitic stuff that he was saying, but also because I think he's a man in mental crisis in that video. I really do. I think it's like watching the Britney Spears having the meltdown kind of stuff, It's like that guy needs help. So that's just my take. So how about this one?
Which one are we going to?
How about when Tom Cruise started a conversation about Scientology, antidepressants, big pharma, and whether or not he had lost his mind by jumping on Oprah's couch?
This was the moment people started to think Tom Cruise was crazy, which surprisingly didn't hurt his career.
Yes, weird, right? Because they started to say about him similarly, like Sinead and other, he's crazy. This is crazy.
Though I do know a lot of people in Hollywood are part of Scientology church, Scientologists, and so maybe that helps.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all, thanks for coming to my Legends Ball with Katie. Was that the best fun? Was that? Yes, yes. What has happened to you? That's how I feel about it. Really? Something happened to you. Something happened to you.
I'm in love.
No, they're literally on the edge of their seats. They're like this. No, I know what he's doing. He's processing. He's trying to just figure out what he is going to tell, what he isn't going to tell. I've never seen you like that. I know. We've never seen you behave this way before.
I know.
Have you ever felt this way before? You're gone. You are gone.
Keri.
I'm not going to pretend.
What?
You're not. You know, Katie once told 17
You want me to pause it?
I want to be this happy, Keri.
You
What
want
drug
to be
do I
this
need to be this happy?
Well, not antidepressants.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Damn.
I will say his stuff about antidepressants is one of those things where when he was criticizing psychiatry and antidepressants and at the time, kind of like with Sinead, people thought he was crazy. I think that was at least that seemed to be the major consensus of the public, was that he was crazy. And but this is because he's a Scientologist, and to be clear, I think Scientology is a cult. But all these years later, I've seen a lot of people, even Matt Walsh did a video recently where people are kind of saying, hey, especially now with what's happened with the pharmaceutical industry in the past 3 years, people are a little bit more skeptical, and a lot of people are starting to talk about, and with the massive increase in numbers of women, specifically white women, on antidepressants, I think people are now kind of saying, hey, maybe he had a point about this one thing, right?
Yeah, I can't remember if we showed this before, but I found an article from a government paper that was written around the time he criticized pharmaceutical companies, like saying that he was like crazy and they were like defending pharmaceutical stuff, and it was obviously not true, but you kind of see the influence that Big Pharma had back then, as they still do, over the government. But yeah, this was a time when people were a lot more naive about the influence that these big pharmaceutical corporations have on the media and the politicians. And so I want to say that came out after this, because it was a lot easier to paint him as crazy after this incident with his statements about the pharmaceutical stuff. Like, even if this didn't happen, they still would have tried, but I don't think it would have been as effective in the minds of so many people in the public.
Yeah. I think can somebody look that up for us? Did the prescription drug talk happen right after this? I'm sorry I didn't look it up. I think you're right though. Wait, here it is. I just want to make sure we get this in before. I do have a video queued up of that. Do you want to see that, Mystery Chris?
We'll watch a little bit of it.
Just a quick clip of him on Matt Lauer. Okay, here we go. This is what we were coming for.
Magazine. Yes.
That's it. Okay. I mean, there's more. There was a lot of this.
I just remember this being parodied in so many shows and stuff. It was in Scary Movie. I think one of the Scary Movies had a whole scene where they parodied that.
Him jumping on the couch?
Yeah. And there's been memes and stuff people have done of him. Like I think one had him, maybe I'm confusing with the Scary Movie clip, but one where he was like shooting out these rays from his hands, like Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. He was like shocking the audience, and it's pretty hilarious.
Arnauer says, "Yep." I wonder if that means he started criticizing prescription drugs after jumping on the couch.
I think so, because I want to say this is 2007, and I think the couch stuff is 2005 or 2006.
So here's a quick clip of him talking to Matt Lauer.
Ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry. And as far as the Brooke Shields thing is, look, you got to understand, I really care about Brooke Shields. I think here's a wonderful and talented woman. And I want to see her do well. And I know that psychiatry is a pseudoscience.
But Tom, if she said that this particular thing helped her feel better, whether it was the antidepressant or going to a counselor or a psychiatrist, isn't that enough?
Matt, you have to understand this. Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is this was not against her will, though.
Matt,
I'm asking you a question.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
aren't there examples, and might not Brooke Shields be an example of someone who benefited from one of those drugs?
All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
So
in a body.
postpartum depression to you is
Matt,
kind of a little psychological gobbledygook?
No, I did not say that.
I'm just asking what you...
I have to say, I do like the way he's like, Matt.
No. Matt,
No,
some lady to go sexually harass.
That's true. Is Matt Lauer wearing eyeshadow?
I'm surprised. He's been canceled, I guess, right?
Yeah,
he's not doing anything right now.
He's since gone. Here, I want to hear the end of this.
No,
what would you call it?
Matt, that is that post. Now you're talking about two different things.
But that's what she went on the antidepressant for.
But what happens, the antidepressant, all it does is mask the problem. There's ways of vitamins and through exercise and various things. I'm not saying that isn't real. That's not what I'm saying. That's an alteration of what I'm saying. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer, that these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that so that we don't end up in a brave new world. The thing that I'm saying about Brooke is that there's misinformation, okay? And she doesn't understand the history of psychiatry. She doesn't understand in the same way that you don't understand it, man.
But a little bit what you're saying, Tom, is you say you want people to do well, but you want them to do well by taking the road that you approve of, as opposed to a road that may work for them.
No.
This is the original. This is like, what was that lady that interviewed Jordan Peterson was like, so what you're saying? And he's like, no. Just a couple of things in the chat, because this is interesting. I actually agree with both of you guys. I'm Kale, who says, say that to a schizophrenic. I absolutely agree. I think there are certain conditions which are so severe where if a person is hearing audible voices, experiencing the symptoms that that they cluster together under the title of schizophrenia, that would be a point at which you might want to try some type of pharmaceutical relief or something to help that condition. I think, though, that this person, Mighty Orbits, who says that's true, doesn't fix anything when referring to antidepressants. I think that's also kind of true. I do. And I just hear me out. I think it's that we overprescribe those things for conditions that are not as severe as schizophrenia. That the number of kids and adults who are prescribed Adderall and Ritalin, the kind of stuff he's talking about, the stimulants, the number of adults who are prescribed SSRIs and antidepressants, and it's been climbing, and it's going to keep on climbing. And I think it's just handed out from personal anecdotal experience. I think it's handed out like candy. I've I sat in my old life in a therapist's office who recommended me to a psychiatrist, and it was they kind of try and get you on. And Mike Harlow has criticized this, where he's gone to talk to therapists about what types of treatment could you have for depression that are not pharmaceuticals, and they're really just like, what? Try the pharmaceuticals. Like, they're really like, get on the meds. Like, it's sort of a pushing thing.
Yeah, it's not addressing the core issue with a lot of things. Not everything. Of course, there's sometimes people have some imbalances, but a lot of times there's something deeper happening in that person's life, and people are being told the quick fix is to take this pill.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that doesn't fix that issue, just kind of covers it up or doesn't do a very good job, and people are still miserable. They're still feeling the anxiety and depression. And we as a society just keep getting further and further away from addressing the root cause of these issues, something that's very deep and complex, and it's something that a pill generally can't take away.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'm not bashing on anybody who's on any kind of meds in the chat. I don't know you. I don't know your story. I don't know what you need. There are some people saying I'm taking this or that. It's almost, there's an analogy there with the trans thing, with trans and kids and stuff, where it used to be that you would see reliably less than 1% of the population who said they struggled with what was called gender dysphoria. What they came these symptoms, these feelings that persisted, and it usually was with they would see it in young boys, and there was a sort of a commonality to the people who experienced this, and it was less than 1% of the population. But now we're at a point in culture where it's like they're teaching gender ideology to kids in elementary school even, and preschool for some kids. And so now you've got this just huge spike in the you're trans too, and you're trans, and I'm trans, and we're all trans. And it's just this, and I kind of feel like there might be something similar there where it's almost hard to, you don't even know now who legitimately has tried everything and this is appropriate for them, because I don't trust the doctors. I don't trust the doctors to make that determination, just like I don't trust them right now with trans and kids. Like, I don't trust them at all. And I think they're just like, oh, you're feeling down? Get on some meds. And it's just this huge group of people now, and growing, who are being put on these medications who may not need it, who might be best for them to try some other things first,
Yeah. Big Pharma wants lifetime customers.
Lifetime, yeah. So, yeah, a social contagion, Kevin. That's what I'm talking about. Or no, it's not just with antidepressants. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm starting to see it's sort of like the whole industry in some ways is built around, instead of preventative medicine and teaching people how to be healthy, it teaches like we're going to wait till you have something, and then we're going to put you on meds. And these meds may cause other problems, a whole list of things. And then you got to come back for more meds and to treat those things. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical about it now. Soma. Yeah. Somebody says, what's the drug in Brave New World?
Get those 2-minute long commercials for like some antidepressant, whether it takes that long to read all the side effects, like may cause anal bleeding, may cause this, but there's a pretty butterfly, glowing butterfly flying through the window. You're like, oh, pretty butterfly. I'm okay with anal bleeding.
Yeah. When there's something beautiful on the screen.
It's
so
like
funny.
Horrible side effects. Like,
and horrible, like, or death.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. May cause death. I'm anti-pilled, says Nick Ortega. Yeah. Look, Gina says antidepressants didn't work for me. I was on 3 different kinds and they all made me very suicidal. Exercise does wonders for depression. Girl, I'm with you. When I went through my divorce, is when I was at, during that time period, was seeing a therapist who referred me to a psychiatrist, and I was on them for a time, and I can't tell. I don't think they helped me. I eventually went off of them like cold turkey, which was one of the best things I ever did before. And then after that, I got sober, quit drinking. Also, probably wasn't good. I was drinking while I was taking them either, which a lot of people do. But things started to get better for me even before I quit drinking after I went off of them. That's just my story. That's just my case, but I don't think they were helping me.
I also wonder in some cases if volunteering would help, being able to help someone improve their lives. I think if you're a good-hearted person, that's going to have some positive effect on you, wanting to improve the lot of somebody else, and kind of helps put some of your problems into perspective. If you're going out feeding homeless or volunteering at a hospital, children's hospital or something. And I don't see a lot of people recommend that as much, but I always wonder, like, I would think that would help.
Have you ever been to an AA meeting, Mystery Chris?
I have not.
Well, you just espouse something that is, at least I've heard in AA circles, which is when you're feeling your worst, or you're craving a drink or whatever your drug of choice is that you're off of, that you reach out and help somebody. Isn't that interesting? The first time I heard that, I was like, what? Do you mean reach out for help? Which they also say reach out for help, but they are like, no, if you help somebody else with something, you're useful, you're needed. It takes your mind off your problems because you're helping them with their problem. You're focusing on someone other than yourself, and it's good for you. It's good for them. And that's an interest, maybe not at the time when I first heard it, it wasn't something I was like, oh, that's interesting to do it. Reach out to help someone instead of reach out for help. It's like those studies. It might have been Jordan Peterson I heard talking about this, or maybe it was in some other video I watched. But I heard about that if you give nursing home patients pets, like a bird maybe on each floor, or a turtle on each floor, or something, an aquarium with fish, or if you give them plants to take care of, if you give them something to take care of, they're responsible for something other than themselves, that if you do studies on their sense of well-being and meaningfulness in life and satisfaction with life, that it improves their mood and overall well-being significantly, which makes sense, right? Because you're necessarily have to take care of something other than yourself. You might be in this nursing home feeling like all your independence has been robbed from you, but you're given this thing that's like, you are responsible for this. And it builds
Yeah,
your
I can see that.
confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Sorry, I knew we were going to have tangents on this because
I know.
because every subject that's being brought up by these unscripted moments is like, there's like different subjects. I think everybody has seen, now this next one that's on our list is it's one that everybody's seen. It's a recent one. I think you guys know. It's the slap. It's the Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, this very shocking unscripted moment. I don't know if we need to play the original because everybody's seen it.
Yeah, I
It was
didn't put
so
that there.
recently.
I just put a
But
bunch of funny edits there.
it did set off a firestorm of memes and comedy references, and Chris Rock ended up putting it, referencing it in his stand-up. And it did start a lot of conversations about, here's some of the conversations I saw after that slap. A lot of people have become so cynical for good reason about the news and the entertainment industry that they were like, that was scripted. I don't agree with them, but I understand why some people think that. It started conversations about personality disorders and abuse. I saw a lot of people start to talk about Jada Pinkett Smith's relationship with Will Smith and what may have prompted this. And then some people tried to make it about race. I didn't really see the race aspect. I don't know if you did, but they always try to make something about race, right? The woke.
I thought it was kind of embarrassing though, as a black man, having this stage, a stage in which people all around the world are watching the show, and having a rich black guy go up and slap another rich black guy. It was embarrassing for because of the stereotype of us black men being very violent, more violent than other men of other races. I mean, it to me, it kind of helps reinforce that in the eyes of some people, which I didn't like. And so I just remember seeing this live, being shocked, because at first I thought that it was a joke, because Chris Rock says something, makes a joke, and Will Smith gets up and looks like he's gonna like whisper or put his arm around him and have like a good joke and stuff, and he slaps him. And then I thought, is that fake? But he sits back down and starts cursing, keep my wife's name out your effing mouth.
Yeah.
And like he kept doing it, and like the theater goes silent, and his eyes, like Will Smith's eyes, they look almost like he's almost going to cry. And so for a moment I thought that Jada Pinkett, maybe she had some kind of illness that people weren't aware of, and that's why he got so emotional that he felt like he needed to go up and slap him. But I didn't see anything come out about that. It was just, I guess she claims she has some kind of hair thing, but nothing like it's gonna kill her or anything.
I think that's a whole nother tangent. We don't have time, but I think she is a
succubus.
Yes, and a narcissist. And I think they both probably have issues, but I think she is the more toxic one in that relationship. And I think you're watching a somewhat broken man on that stage slapping Chris Rock.
And that's what's so disappointing because, like, I remember growing up watching Will Smith, and he was like one of the coolest dudes in the world. He's hilarious, charismatic, and to see him get like cucked, like even before this with the cheating that she did on him, and exposing that on national TV, and he looked humiliated, and then him having this, needing to protect the honor of thy woman moment, it just made him look even weaker. And I was like, what happened to you? Were you always like this and nobody saw it?
I bet you that was, I mean, I just got the impression that was something he felt he had to do to keep the peace with her. Like an abused dog will, defend its abusive owner. That's just, I don't know. That's what it struck me. And there's again, that's a whole rabbit hole. I know it seems like, Keri, what are you basing this on? If you haven't heard that take on it before, maybe we could cover that at some point, but it's too much. Okay. So you pulled up something funny instead, since we've all seen this, we don't need to see it again. Here,
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? Uh-oh, Richard.
somebody did a whole stop motion claymation.
Look at Jada, the way they made Jada. She's bigger than him. Like Clyde Drexler.
How talented this person is, though. Claymation. What an original idea. Okay.
Uh-oh, Richard. Keep my wife's name out your mouth. Oh, okay.
Wow.
I think the best thing to cover this was all the memes. Like, I have a couple more videos, but there's so many variations of people editing things in, and it's hilarious. Like, I'd never seen anything quite this big, because it trended pretty quickly on Twitter, and like the next morning it was everywhere, all the major news outlets. Even I saw people on YouTube who don't even normally comment on like pop culture stuff, like commenting on it and making videos on it. And I was like, this thing is huge. Couldn't get away from it.
Yeah. Somebody has a comment for you.
No.
Did Mystery Chris just say she looks like Clyde Drexler?
Yeah, I did.
Who's Clyde Drexler?
Oh, Keri.
It just went over my head, and I wasn't gonna.
He's a famous basketball player.
Okay,
he's a '90s.
Sorry.
He was on the world champion Houston Rockets 1995 team.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for telling me. I don't always stop and ask if I don't know, but I didn't know. Sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to put that up there. Okay, so what's this one? Just another funny.
Yeah, so in this one, Chris Rock fights back.
Oh, in an alternate universe. Okay, let's see.
Yeah. Uh-oh, Richard.
Oh, no.
That was a nice one. Okay.
That's funny. By the way, I did see somebody in the chat say Chris Rock actually maintained that lingering bit of decorum that night.
Yeah, he did swing back.
Yeah.
Some people are saying like, was this a conscious decision in terms like he was conscious of the way it's going to look, or is it just because Chris Rock knows that he can't do anything with Will Smith because Will Smith's much larger and Chris Rock's not a fighter; he's a thin, short dude.
I think he just maintained being an adult. Like we're in the middle of an award show. I am not going to be tempted into hitting you back. I thought he handled it great.
Yeah, because if you look at the video, it looks like once he gets slapped and he kind of stumbles back a little bit, it looks like his right hand kind of forms a fist. It almost looks like he was going to punch him, because I think that's a natural reaction most people have. If someone hits you, your natural reaction is to hit back. And so it does kind of look like he stops himself from swinging back.
I don't know if he had an inclination to swing back, if he was just steadying himself, but either way, he handled it great. What is this one?
So this was just a funny edit, but you'll see. It's very short.
Uh-oh, Richard.
How do they manipulate them? Is that with
I don't
AI?
know. That's so good. Yeah, but there's all sorts of ones. There's Star Wars one with Will Smith has a lightsaber and cuts off Chris Rock's head, and there's another one of I think it's Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Like right before he gets slapped, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man comes out of a portal and like grabs Chris Rock and brings him through the portal. And Will Smith just slaps air. It's pretty funny.
You're right that this had such a cult and it was so recent. So we also still remember a bunch of the stuff. Plus we're in the age of social media and AI and all this stuff. So it's just, that when it was everywhere. People we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one is this was for Gen X. I mean, this is a very memorable one. And I think this is one of I don't know. I was about to say that some people started to develop a skepticism about the music industry, but I don't think so. I don't think that came until later. I think people viewed this as an isolated thing that happened and thought it was like, and it was pretty crazy. Milli Vanilli, kids. If you don't know who Milli Vanilli is, they were one of the most popular groups. Girl, you know it's true. That song still hits. I love that song.
I love
I love you. It's good. Blame it on the rain. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were good. But it turns out it wasn't really them singing. They were two dancers, and they were brought together by, I believe, was it their manager? Someone brought them together and concocted this idea to have to lip sync over them and have someone else sing all the vocals since they weren't great singers. But they were great dancers, and so they would dance during and they ended up blowing up, becoming huge. So they had to perform, and they would just go out there and lip sync. And nobody realized it wasn't them, even though they both spoke with like thick accent. And it was sort of like, and Milli Vanilli. Yeah, so Kevin Anderson says, don't most acts lip sync on tour these days? Yes, and that's what I was kind of saying. Now I've gotten to the point where I don't trust that any pop star is actually singing. We've seen so many of them malfunction where it's obvious they're lip syncing and it's such a letdown. But back then, this was huge because not only were they lip syncing on stage during the live performances, but they were lip syncing. It wasn't their vocals on the track.
Yeah.
It was never them singing.
Yeah, they couldn't sing at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's play this video, and I have a short news clip we can play afterwards.
Oh no!
Run!
Even now, I feel embarrassment.
You're so you're cringing like, ugh. Oh, awkward.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This was huge, and people made so much fun of them. I mean, if we didn't have social media at the time, so there weren't, all these like YouTube, TikTok videos, and it wasn't that big, but it was big for the time, for the media that we had. People made fun of them on every late night comedy show. Their name became a punchline. If you weren't alive then, they became overnight really popular band to a joke, and they were booed, they were hated. Do you have a news report about it?
Yeah, this is a CNN report from 1990, and I queued it up. Should be queued up at the right spot. We just play like a minute or so of it because it's kind of like a compilation of news reports from that time. But this kind of details right after the scandal hit.
Hello from Hollywood, I'm Bella Shaw. Lauren Sidney is off today. Welcome to Showbiz Today. The two men who fronted Milli Vanilli spoke with their own voices today to say they can sing, but were forced to lip sync and live a lie. Sandy Kenyon covered this morning's Milli Vanilli news conference live on CNN and files this report.
Reporters were out for blood, and the result was a media circus that was anything but tame. When Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan, otherwise known as Milli Vanilli, tried to explain a 2.5-year deception.
You get something, but for that you make a pact with the devil.
The purpose of the event was to announce the pair was returning the Grammy Awards they won for the Best New Artist of 1989. But the Recording Academy had already stripped them of the trophies the day before. The duo told CNN what should have been the best night of their lives was the worst.
We felt that's the death sentence.
How would you feel?
Because there we knew already people spoke to the press. The whole wave started to begin. Nobody could stop the wave. We knew we were lost in the moment that we got the Grammy in the hand. We knew that gonna be
it was done.
But not before Milli Vanilli had sold 20 million records worldwide. The two imposters claimed their producer tricked them into singing along to other people's tracks at first, then pressured them to continue the deceit. Their record company claims to have been unaware of it, but the pair do in fact also blame Arista for forcing them to lie.
And we regretted it. We tell our fans, we regretted it 200,000 times. Lying in front of her mom, lying in front of your girlfriend, lying in front of everybody. Ends up, it's one time, it's no problem. Over 2.5 years, it ends up in frustration, in we were depressed. We want to get out. We are happy.
You can stop.
To be out.
It's so sad.
I do feel a little bad, because they kind of took the brunt of the blame, really all the blame, actually. Because the person who put them together, I think his name is Frank Farrin. He had done this before. So Boney M, if you've ever heard of that group, German group, it was pretty big. Same thing, where they got singers or people to perform and pretend that they were singing when they weren't the actual voices on the record or live. And so he had a track record of kind of doing this with groups and making them huge pop sensations. But once this happened, Milli Vanilli took the brunt of the blame, and I think it contributed to the death of one of them, because I think Rod is his name, the lighter skinned one, died in 98. So he ended up overdosing on alcohol and pills, and it was just really sad, just kind of seeing what happened to him, and just amazing just how much this contributed to the downfall. The other one is doing better. He's still continuing, and he's singing on his own now, because they couldn't really sing at that time, but they tried in between, like when the scandal broke, they had hired a vocal coach, and they tried to have a career with their own voices, but that didn't gain any traction and just flamed out. So just sad story all around.
Yeah, it's really sad what happened to Rob. And I've heard, it's been a while, but I recall hearing Fab talk about it in maybe a documentary, a news report or something, but just how this contributed to him. Like, he didn't bounce back like Fab did. He just gave himself over to addiction and crack and alcohol and all kinds of things.
And something in that report, which later on, we don't have to play it, but in that report, it goes on to talk about how there's people who sued Milli Vanilli, people who bought the records, and filed a lawsuit on them because I guess it was, I don't know what you would say, it's a false advertising. I don't know.
Yeah.
I assume, I didn't look into the lawsuits. I assume they were dismissed because that's ridiculous. But just shows you what people do just to get $10 back.
Just to get their $10 back. Yeah.
So
goodness. Alan, thank you for being a YouTube member. Alan says, I honestly think this kind of stuff brought the grunge phase in. Yeah, I think it did, because people were craving authenticity at that time.
Yeah, 1990 was kind of a weird year, that in-between year where a lot of music was little 80s, but kind of its own category. And it's right before you had grunge and alternative rock, and then the Snoop Dogg and Tupac style of hip hop come out that kind of dominated the 90s. It's a very weird year.
The 90s in general, just a lot of weird stuff going on. Although nothing compared to now.
I know.
Keep up with it now.
I want to go back to the 90s.
Okay, let's see. What else do we have? I think this. I think maybe because I don't want to go too long over, and I just want to hit the ones that are like really big in terms of causing conversation and something we hadn't seen that was like a live, unscripted moment. And so, out of the ones left, I had some on here of really shocking, but a lot of people don't know about these. I'm going to take these off. You can go and look these up later because they're pretty shocking. There's a documentary about one of these. I had on here Christine Chubbuck. She was a news reporter who what are you supposed to say on YouTube? Ended herself on live television in the 70s. And there's a whole documentary about her, and that's just, I mean, can you imagine if you were watching that live, or if you had kids in the room or whatever, just yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that, but we'll save them for another time. I don't think a lot of people know about that one. There was also, in that same vein of true crime, there was a story of, it was a, I think it was a Virginia news station. Yes. And this wasn't all that long ago. This was 2015. And a disgruntled former employee or colleague showed up live on the scene and killed a reporter and cameraman while they were shooting live. And that people saw that happen live. And that's another crazy one. But again, unless you know a lot about true crime and stuff, I don't know if you would know that, because sometimes those kind of things, it's not the same thing as when it's, it's sort of, people don't want to see it and they don't want to talk about it. I don't know if it causes the same kind of conversations. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so those two we're not going to cover, but how about, I definitely want to hit Arsenio Hall, and I definitely want to hit Miss Teen USA. Which one should we do first?
Let's do Miss Teen USA.
Now, this is Miss Teen USA competition 2007, and this is my home state of South Carolina. I know you shouldn't feel proud or ashamed. You're not a group, we are all individuals. I believe in individualism, but can't help but feel when this happened, it was like, no, South Carolina, no.
Every entire state is like this.
But let's not just pick on South Carolina. I just saw recently, sometime this past week, I saw some Fleckus Talks videos of him interviewing Gen Z. And oh my goodness, Mr. Chris, have you seen these videos?
No.
It is depressing. He's done like 3 of them where he goes to Times Square. He just asks young people, like, if you were born 10 years ago, how old would you be today? And they're like, 12. And he's like, 10. Like, you were born 10 years ago. Like, they can't do basic math.
Mhm.
And he's asking them the most basic questions. And he's asking them, can you name, or how many continents are there? And they don't know. And then he's like, okay, well, how about, can you name a continent? Just one continent. And they can't. Gen Z. And then he's like, okay, how about what continent are we on right now? And the answers they give are insane. They're like, the Bronx. And he's like, no. And just, it was so, and these aren't fake. These are actual. And I'm sure he had to cut out some people who got right answers, but there's so many of them that don't know. They can't tell time. He asked them questions about, what does it mean to be 15 past the hour, and how many minutes past is that? And they're like 25, like just crazy stuff where you're like, or half past the hour, how many minutes is that past the hour? And they're like 25, or like
So our educational system's doing great.
yeah, so it's terrible. It's actually really, or he asked them just basic geography questions. We should just watch it sometime because I can't even remember. But it's not like a trick. He's not trick questions. These are not overly difficult questions. These are questions that third graders should know. Third graders, and these 19, 20, 21-year-olds have no clue. And yeah, it was pretty shocking. Okay.
Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Oh.
It's so embarrassing. He looks so embarrassed for her. Mario Lopez, isn't that who that is?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So she won, right?
Did she win?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
But it'd be hilarious. Like, we like her improv skills.
So that's 2007, and yeah, she nailed it. Oh, nerves. No, I don't think it's nerves. I mean, they may have contributed, but I really think she didn't know how to form a thought.
Because it does seem like she's mixing in prepared answers for different questions, and so I think it's maybe a little bit of both. I'm sure she's not like super intelligent, but I do think nerves, because she kind of loses track of what she's saying and just starts saying whatever comes to mind.
I don't know. Maybe. But even if you can't just, that's kind of a simple question. And it's also, it's not just that she's mixing in part of prepared answers. She's also saying things that don't make sense, like such as. And look, I know it's not an unscripted TV moment, but I have to show you this because it's related. And I knew we were going to go on a rabbit hole. Like we're going to tangent for each.
That's what we do.
Each of these videos is about a different issue, right? These unscripted moments. So that moment, as I took, people made fun of her. It was, it was a huge cultural moment, pop culture moment, where people talked about it on the water cooler. They made fun of her. They made fun of South Carolina, which sucked. They made fun of young people, the education system. But I really think it's so much worse today. That was 2007. Now we're in 2023. And like I said, now I know this is cherry picked and this is not a scientific sample because this is a video on Fleckus Talks. But just the sheer number of people. Can I just show you a part of one of these?
Let's see it.
This is where we're at today with young people. Okay.
How many stars there are on the U.S. flag?
52.
Yes. What state is Utah in?
Close.
Michigan.
Yes. You know what state Utah is in?
Utah, to be honest with you, I never heard of that place ever in my life. I live under a rock.
Can you name 3 countries besides the USA?
I suck at history. I was like, my worst subject. Can we do like science?
Any three, you know this.
A country? Oh my jeez, this is terrible. Oh my god.
By the way, they're interviewing people at a gay pride event. That's why they're all wearing pride stuff.
What, besides the U.S.?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't.
All right, it's fine.
I can't do history. I can't.
Do you know how many dimes there are in the dollar?
By the way, stop there. Can you name 3 countries? No, I can't. I don't do history. That's not history, honey bunches. It's geography, honey.
Make up $1.
A dime is the 10 cent or the 5 cent?
You tell me.
I don't know.
Can you name 3 countries besides the USA?
Damn.
Any 3. You know this.
Canada? New Mexico, right? That's good?
New Mexico.
Yeah.
Damn, I need one more. Damn.
Yeah, so you got Canada, New Mexico, and what?
Damn. I need to go back to school.
Do you know how many states there are in total in the US?
100.
How many continents are there?
3.
Continents?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you know what 2 countries border the US?
So bordered?
Yeah, like on the borders.
Okay, I'll stop. It goes on, and there's more than these. Yeah, somebody says this is old. Yeah, that particular one's a year old. He's done this a few times. I've watched 3 of them. It's new to me. I had not seen these before. We've not all seen the same things at the same time. So I just saw this week, and I was floored. And
Well,
yeah,
we'll be seeing some of them again when they run for Congress and win. It's gonna happen. You know it is.
terrible. It's terrible. Yes, idiocracy is here. It's just, I mean, I have to kind of laugh, and I have to kind of. It's not entirely their fault. It's the
We're
education
too busy
system.
having sex to care.
There's too much. I mean, the public schools suck. It's instead of teaching them how many dimes are in a dollar, or how many states there are, or what the names of some other countries are, the schools are teaching them that biological sex isn't real, and about gender identity, and about it's teaching them about critical race theory, but not telling them that's what it's called. It's pushing kids full of ideology, and this is what happens. And so, yes, part of it is their responsibility, but part of it's on the public schools. Part of it's on just our culture. Our culture sucks right now. A lot of it does. And it's on this new age that we're in with so many distractions. What were you saying the other day? That the amount of television, we don't all watch the same things anymore because there's so many platforms now, and so many kids are watching TikTok instead of TV. There's YouTube, there's Twitter, and then television hours. There's so much TV now to choose from. And
Attention spans have gone down quite a bit. I always joke that eventually teachers are going to need to start rapping to their students or to keep them interested in learning.
Yes.
I seriously actually think you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to make it more entertaining.
Yeah. I'm sure some teachers have tried that, like
1776, yo.
Right. Oh man. Somebody said, one of the ones I saw, he said, who was fighting in the Civil War, and they were like the US, and even like stuff like that. Or when was America founded? When did we gain our first? He was asking them, when did we gain our independence from Great Britain? And they were like, huh? And he's like, when were we founded? When was America founded? And this one girl was like, 1992. And then I'm like, what?
It's hard to believe that people are like that dumb, because like even I know the educational system's garbage, but some of these things are just so basic, and they used to be things that were in entertainment. Like I remember as a kid, there were a lot of cartoons, Looney Tunes, and Animaniacs, and the stuff that actually talked about some of this stuff. So you could still learn a little bit from entertainment back in the day.
Back in the day, man, if you go down that rabbit hole, again, it's cherry picked. So you're not seeing all the incredibly bright young people, and there are a lot of them. I know that. But man, just speechless. That's all. Okay. I definitely want to cover. Do you want to do Arsenio Hall? I think we should.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So this is a great video. of Arsenio Hall, who, for those who don't know, was a comedian, talk show host in late 80s, early 90s. He had a very popular show. This show basically helped usher Johnny Carson out because his Arsenio Hall show was much hipper and cooler, attracting a younger audience, and that's why they ended up going with Jay Leno to replace Carson. But on this episode of Arsenio Hall, he's giving his monologue or doing something, and some gay activists get up in his audience and start yelling stuff, and Arsenio goes off on them.
This is pretty incredible. I actually did not remember this. I think you were the person who showed me this the first time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Should I play the whole thing? The beginning?
You can play a little bit of it. You cut it whenever you feel like it, since it's pretty long.
Wait a minute. I think I did see this once before. Because isn't it Larry Kramer? Is that who was there? Or no?
I don't remember.
The protester? Okay, never mind.
The blonde girl's so funny while they were singing. She said, "Oh my God!" It was so funny, so funny. Huh? I'm sorry, I can't hear you, man. Why don't I have any gay guests on my show? Wait, I'm sorry. Why don't I have any gay guests on my show? Well, there are a lot of gay guests who really don't like to talk about their sexual preference, so we don't know whether they're gay or not. You know? Now, this ain't Merv. You didn't think I'd run from this, did you? This ain't Johnny. I ain't gonna run from it. I'm gonna deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Now, who would you like me to have on my show that's gay that maybe I haven't had? Who? I don't know Gus Van Sant, but I know Elton John. He's been here and he's rocked the house.
That's what they suggested, Larry Kramer, and then they said Gus Van Sant.
Okay. What? When Harvey has something I'm interested in, I'll bring him on the show. But this is my show, okay? This is my show. This is my show. You understand? This is my show. This is my show, man. You think I haven't had somebody on the show because they're gay? What's wrong with you, man? I'm black. I'm black, man. I'm the biggest minority you know about. I don't want to hear that gay trash, man. I got gay friends I've had on the show because you don't know them or it ain't who you want on the show. You got a problem with it. If you want to book it, get yourself a show. Now sit down. Do the show. You've had your say and I've had mine.
It's so refreshing. I wish more people would stand up like this today.
Look at it. It's
the
so
entire
refreshing.
audience is on his side. Today they probably boo him.
Yeah, the audience loves it. And I love the way he's so cool while he's doing it too. And he puts his glasses on and he takes his glasses off to talk to them and he puts them back on. And I'm done. And walks away.
I'm black.
Have you ever done that?
Every day.
You should have an Arsenio moment once in a while. I'm black.
Next time I apply for a job, I'm just gonna submit a resume that just says I'm black on it. Nothing else.
Just do the whole thing.
Yeah,
What?
just says I'm black in block letters.
Done. I'm black. When do I start?
It's gotta work somewhere.
I might actually call you in for an interview if I got that in the mail. I think it was so funny. I'd be like, I gotta meet this dude. That's funny. By the way, Robert Hop, thank you for this comment. I saw this go by. He says, I love Mystery Chris and his woke remakes. And
Thank you, Robert.
yeah, if you haven't seen it, Mystery Chris did yet a second woke remake on an episode of Pop Culture. Was it last week? Just last week?
Yeah.
And it's RoboCop, Black the Blue.
Yeah.
And you can watch it. We clipped it. You can watch it. It's so funny. And if you haven't seen, because I know you don't always go into the comments, Mystery Chris, there's a lot of great compliments for you in that video. People love it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Somebody was like, "Who is this guy? He knows how to write a joke."
Well, thank you.
Oh, Arnara says you might get into Harvard with that letter.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was super cool. We have others on here. I mean, we have the nip slip, but I feel like people know what happened. Her Janet Jackson, right? And her BB kind
Yeah.
of popped out. And you do have the Michael Richards on here, Kramer from Seinfeld. Oh,
I just want to show the apology because it's hilarious.
okay. Let's
Makes
watch
me
the
laugh.
apology.
But you got to show part of the news report, set it up a little bit.
Okay, let's do.
Because yeah, we just watch a little bit of this. I couldn't find a lot of censored versions of this, so that's why I included this news report. But let's watch like a minute or so, and then the apology, the awkward apology.
Okay.
So Michael Richards, Kramer from Seinfeld, was at a club in LA, Laugh Factory, and something happened between him and some people in the audience who were black, and he just had a meltdown.
Richards was trying to put out the firestorm he ignited with racial slurs during a stand-up routine Friday night in Los Angeles.
Shut up! 50 years ago, you had your upside down with a fork up your ass.
Richards' tirade against two black audience members who were talking during his act was caught on tape and posted on the celebrity website TMZ. Oh my God. You can hear nervous laughter from the audience as the exchange became more aggressive.
Wait a minute, where's he going?
Richards' remarks drew condemnation Monday from civil rights activists in Los Angeles.
We're saying to Mr. Richards that it's unacceptable hate speech.
To the owner of the Laugh Factory,
You can stop it there.
to callers on the Tom Likas.
Do you remember when this happened?
Yes. What year was this?
2007.
Yeah. I was working in Hollywood by then. I was working in comedy by then. And I remember it was huge, and I was super woke by then because I picked it up in college. And I just, in the circle I ran in, the comedians I knew, worked with, myself, we all were like, what a racist scumbag. I can't believe all his racism came out, right? That's the way I interpreted it. It was huge. And what were you doing then? When did you hear this?
I was laughing, number one.
You were laughing?
This was funny. Kramer go crazy. I love it. Yeah, I love this apology, if we could pull that up. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Gilda says all my black friends thought it was hilarious. Really?
Yes. This is having a meltdown, just dropping N-bombs after N-bombs. I'd never seen that before. It's hilarious. And this was parodied so many other places, like South Park. It's called the N-word guy. It's a hilarious episode. But in this apology, so Jerry Seinfeld goes on David Letterman's program. This is the night after, I think. And he decides to bring out Michael Richards to give apology. And it's extremely awkward. We can just watch a little bit of it. You'll see why pretty quickly.
Okay, real quick. Let me just show you this before we see his apology. Rosenberg says, everyone has a sense of humor, but white leftists. Yeah, here's the thing is now, all these years later, I look back on that and I'm like, oh, I've seen a ton of comedians do. He's a comedian. Yes, he was angry, but he was also trying to be funny and shocking and say the most taboo thing. And there's no room for that, maybe, or what if, or nuance in wokeism, because they don't They're say this is absolutely taboo. It's never, you never do this kind of a joke or insult. You can do any other kind of insult or joke or roast, but you can't do that, right? And now I kind of have a different view on it. Like, I don't necessarily think he has some deep harbored hatred of Black people. I don't know, maybe he does. But back then I was like confident, he's a racist.
Dave Chappelle had a funny joke when he's performing at the Laugh Factory. He was like, I'm up here on stage. All I can think about is Kramer dropping N-bombs. And he's like, 80% of me is mad at him for saying racist stuff, but 20% of me is the comedian going, come on, man, finish your set. You can do it. I was like, that's hilarious.
It's Michael Richards thing. Well, now I don't know him well. I've known him a long time, but I don't know him well. And I can remember years and years ago at the Comedy Store, he would get on stage, and he was always a very dynamic performer. Dynamic to the point that often audiences were frightened. But still, we all got a kick out of it because it was in good fun, and he was and is a very funny guy. And then we see this thing today where he goes nuts in some kind of club and is screaming at people. Have you talked to him? Do you know anything about this?
I did talk to him. I talked to him today, and I was extremely upset about it, and he is extremely upset about it. And I asked him if he would come on the show tonight so that he could explain what happened, because it was just one of those awful things. And I think he's a little mystified about what happened, but I think most importantly, he wanted to... we have him live via satellite from Los Angeles. Sorry, this should be Michael Richards. Michael, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Hi, Michael. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hi.
How you doing?
I'm not doing too good.
Yeah. Why don't you explain exactly what happened for the folks who may not know?
I lost my temper on stage. I was at a comedy club trying to do my act, and I got heckled, and I took it badly and went into a rage, and said some pretty nasty things to some Afro-Americans.
Oh, no. What? No. Were you, let me ask you, back then when this happened, were you laughing through this too?
Yes, this is hilarious. Afro-American, because the audience starts to laugh because they don't know if this is real or is it a joke.
Oh, no. No.
It's so awkward. I love it.
Somebody says it looks like a hostage video.
Yes.
It does.
Just play it just a little bit.
Oh, no.
Trash talk, and
Stop laughing. It's not funny.
And what with the...
Did you hear? Did you hear Jerry Seinfeld off camera? Jerry Seinfeld says to the audience, he scolds them and says, "Stop laughing. It's not funny."
Americans, a lot of trash talk, and
Stop laughing. It's not funny.
And what with the you were actually being heckled, or were they just talking and disturbing the act?
Okay, good stuff.
that was going on too.
But he still continues to use the term Afro-American.
Wait, I want to watch just a little bit more.
Okay.
People are laughing. They don't know what to do.
And did you?
I know. I mean, hearing your audience laugh, and it's. I'm not even sure that this is where I should be addressing the situation. I've already heard you make some jokes about it, and that's okay, But I'm really busted up over this, and I'm very, very sorry to those people in the audience. The blacks, the Hispanics, the whites, everyone that was there that took the brunt of that anger and hate and rage and how it came through, and I'm concerned about more hate and more rage and more anger coming through, not just towards me, but towards a black-white conflict. There's a great deal of disturbance in this country and how blacks feel about what happened in Katrina. And many of the comics, many performers are in Las Vegas and New Orleans trying to raise money for what happened there.
So around the time this was happening, was Kanye doing his thing on television with Mike Myers? That was a little bit before this. Oh, man. Okay. That is super awkward.
I know. It's one of the most awkward things I've ever seen, and I love every second of it.
Somebody says, I don't see this as funny. Yeah, you have to understand. Mr. Chris loves awkwardness. So do I, actually. This is not my particular cup of tea in terms of laugh out loud awkwardness, but it is super uncomfortable, isn't it? Woo.
It's so bizarre and awkward. You just gotta laugh at it. Just how strange it is. Just like so much stuff with the woke stuff going on today. Things are just so weird and over the top. Just can't help but laugh, even though sometimes the actual matter isn't that funny. Yeah.
SC DeGrand says, I love how much Mystery Chris loves this.
I watch it every night. Helps me get to sleep.
Do you think the majority of Black people were laughing at this apology, or do you think they were taking it seriously, or they rejected it, or what?
I don't think they cared. Black people don't watch Seinfeld. They don't know who this dude is.
They don't watch Letterman.
Yeah. I don't care.
Oh no. He was basically apologizing to white people.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And this is before like Twitter, because I mean, so many people find out news to be outraged about based on Twitter. They don't pay attention to the news per se. They just see whatever people are talking about on their timelines or whatever. So that didn't exist back then, Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I have I know we have some funny stuff queued up. Is there one that we definitely need to do? Because I've got to take a little break.
Yeah. Well, the funny stuff was relying on some other stuff that I think we're probably not going to get a chance to talk about tonight. So
let's save it.
Is there anything else that you wanted to bring
up? I kind of want to go out on this because Channel Julio gave us a very kind super chat and reminded us about, I told the chat if there's anything we're forgetting, and he reminded us about Elvis Costello, and you never saw this. Elvis Costello on SNL, this is another SNL one, interrupted his set and he started singing Radio Radio, which was an anti-corporate radio, anti-corporate media song. And this was a big deal at the time. So why don't we go out on this? Here we go.
I've never even heard of this.
And actually, according to here, hold on just 1 second.
Are you a big Elvis Costello fan?
I'm not a huge Elvis Costello fan. He's like one of those guys, if you put it on, I like it, but I've never liked it so much that I get obsessed.
I see.
But okay, so listen to this. I'll read this to you before. It says, Elvis Costello and the Attractions were supposed to play Less Than Zero, but this was in 1977. But only a few bars into the song, Costello put a stop to it and said, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but there's a reason to do this song here. At that point, he and the band launched into Radio Radio, a song that takes a jab at corporate-controlled broadcasting. Saturday Night Live producer Lorne Michaels was furious. According to some reports, he raised his middle finger at Costello and kept it up until the unapproved song was over. Costello was banned from the show for nearly 12 years after this.
Wow.
Yeah. And then this. Elvis Costello admitted that he was copying Jimi Hendrix, who had done the same thing on the Lulu show when he went into an unscheduled rendition of the Cream song, Sunshine of Your Love. The full recording of this piece is unavailable due to SNL or Lorne Michaels or somebody repeatedly taking it down. Anyway.
Wow.
So here, let's put this on the screen. I wish you could see Lorne Michaels shooting him the bird if that really happened.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there's no reason to do this song here. Radio. I watched you in the shine of the light, not now doing better than my radio advised.
With every one of those late night stations playing songs make me just my eyes. I was seriously thinking about.
I'm going to stop now because I know we're going to get in trouble. But here's some of the lyrics from there. Later on, he says, some of my friends sit around every evening and they worry about the times ahead, but everybody else is overwhelmed by indifference and the promise of an early bed. You either shut up or get cut up. They don't want to hear about it. It's only inches on the reel to reel. And the radio is in the hands of such a lot of fools trying to anesthetize the way you feel. Radio is a sound salvation. Radio is cleaning up the nation. They say you better listen to the voice of reason. But they don't give you any choice because they think that it's treason. So you'd better do as you're told and you better listen to the radio.
Kind of surprised they gave him a 12-year ban
for that.
Yeah. Because we don't have time to talk about it today, but maybe on another episode we talk about some of the other times they've banned people, like Martin Lawrence and his monologue and
yeah,
in the 90s, and Charles Rocket, who got fired for dropping the F-bomb live on SNL. So yeah, they seem to have a history of banning people.
Of like
Damon Wayans, he got fired from Saturday Night Live for he changed his character mid-sketch. The skit wasn't working, and so he started making his character, which is like a cop, be gay, like doing like a kind of gay impression or something, and he got fired for that. And he hated being on SNL, like, because he just hated direction and didn't have much of an influence on things. So he said, F it, and got fired.
And was like, see ya.
Yep.
Well, tonight was fun. Thank you for this topic.
Yeah, good trip down memory lane.
Yeah, and there were some things in there I learned about, and maybe any young people in the audience learned about a few things. And thank you for that Sinead excerpt at the beginning. Thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. If it was your first time here, it's a live show. We do Wednesday nights, 8:00. We have fun, talk about pick a specific topic in pop culture and go down the rabbit hole together. We hope you'll join us for another Wednesday. And if you wouldn't mind, hit the like button if you like the video, do the things that you're supposed to do that they say, comments and subscribe, all of it. Okay. Do the things. But yeah, thank you guys. This was fun.
Yeah.
Did you have
anything else?
No. I was waiting for you were going to do a sign off.
I don't know where we're going. What's happening?
I love hanging out with you. Okay. Good night, guys.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.